Thank you. This is my t-shirt. Thanks for those my Shroud of Turin t-shirt. Let's just say that if the Shroud truly is Jesus' image, if it is, Mel Gibson got it right in The Passion.
Jonathan Roumie, the actor known for portraying Jesus, didn't just memorize lines. He went deep, into prayer, into scripture, and into history. One piece of history caught his attention and wouldn't let go: the Shroud of Turin. He studied it closely, spent hours examining every detail, and when asked what he thought, he said something few expected. What they discovered on this relic, it's not of this world. What did he mean by that? Most people hear about the Shroud and think it's just an old, faded image on linen, a curiosity for museums, something you'd glance at and forget. But Roumie and many others see something more. What if the image on the cloth wasn't painted, drawn, or dyed? What if it was imprinted by something we still can't explain? They say it matches the wounds of crucifixion, the bloodstains. Even the facial structure aligns with modern reconstructions of Jesus. Roumie says it changed the way he sees Christ, not just as a role, but as a person. It's not just history, it's personal. Some scientists suggest the image was formed by a burst of radiant energy, something on the level of nuclear light. And strangely, they've only seen that kind of imprint one other time, after Hiroshima. But here's where the story takes a turn. The Shroud has survived fires. It's been hidden, smuggled, protected by royalty, passed through secret hands. Each chapter in its journey only deepens the mystery. During a live stream, Roumie spoke about it quietly, and the chat went still. He said this isn't about cold evidence or debate. This feels sacred, not just an image, but a presence. He described the cloth as having a texture, not flat, but raised, like the image was pressed in, not onto solid, almost seared. For Roumie, it's like a gift left behind, a moment frozen in time. He compared it to the moment Jesus told Thomas, "Touch, see, believe." Not blind faith, but something you can hold. Skeptics have tried to dismiss it, calling it medieval, but the tests they often cite, they were done on a repaired patch, sewn on after a fire, not the original fabric. Roumie, like many, believes the truth runs deeper, that the Shroud isn't just a relic, it's a reminder, a whisper from the resurrection itself. So, the so-called debunking? Turns out it got debunked. While preparing for The Chosen in California, Jonathan Roumie came across something unexpected. A full exhibit, entirely dedicated to the Shroud of Turin. And not just visuals. There was a presentation led by one of the world's foremost experts on the relic. He stood there, stunned, not by theatrics, but by the science. Because what he saw wasn't painted, wasn't drawn, wasn't printed. The image was embedded, as if burned into the linen, not by fire, but by light, resurrection light. And if that's true, then we're not just seeing an artifact. We're witnessing a split second where death broke apart and eternity broke through. Now look closer at the face. It's not clean, it's not serene, it's pain and peace, etched together. This isn't just a man's portrait, it's the imprint of someone beaten, crushed, tortured. Could a nuclear level energy have done that? Or was it something from outside this world? That's the question. When the full-size Shroud is lit and displayed, it takes your breath away. You're no longer looking at history. You're standing in front of something that might be him. And if that's even remotely true, then Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ wasn't exaggerating. If anything, it may have underplayed the agony. Now there's something else Roumie points out that often goes unnoticed. You've probably heard about the 1988 carbon dating that claimed the Shroud was a medieval forgery. But here's the twist. They didn't test the original fabric. They tested a patch, sewn on after the Shroud was damaged in a fire. The rest of the cloth, ancient, untouched, right in line with the time and place of Jesus' crucifixion. To Roumie, this isn't about proving anything. It's about reverence. It's about standing before something sacred and not rushing to explain it away. If that image really is Jesus, he once said, then the suffering he endured is more than any words could ever express. So what exactly is the Shroud of Turin? How has it lasted this long? Who's guarding it today? Take a look at the replicas. They show details that most people miss. Long, narrow fingers, hands folded, right over left. That same shape appears in countless paintings of Christ, maybe because artists misunderstood what they saw on the cloth and painted what they assumed. Then there's the placement of the nails. Contrary to what many believe, the bloodstains don't mark the hands. They're at the wrists. Because historically, Roman executioners didn't drive spikes through palms. They went through the wrist, stronger, more secure. And in some cases, the spike would exit through the back of the hand. It's a brutal image, but it's real. And once you know that, it changes how you see the cross forever. New studies are raising serious questions. What if the original carbon dating of the shroud was simply wrong? Think about it. Over the centuries, countless hands have touched that cloth. Smoke, moisture, handling, repairs. All of it could have altered the surface and misled the testing. Now, some scientists are taking a second look. This time, with modern tools. They're examining the bloodstains. And what they're seeing lines up. Wounds at the wrists and feet, scourge marks, even faint signs of a crown pressed into the forehead. It's not just legend. It mirrors what the Gospels have told us for centuries. And here's the part that stops people in their tracks. They can't find any paint, no pigment, no ink, no material known to produce this kind of image. So the question isn't just what this is, it's how it got there. Some believe it's a miracle, that the cloth wrapped Jesus' crucified body, and what remained wasn't just an impression, but a mark left by the moment of resurrection itself. And really, what could be more sacred than something that might have touched Jesus? Still, not everyone's convinced. There are scholars calling for more evidence, more tests, more caution. But even they admit, the Shroud of Turin is unlike anything else we've found. It stirs debate, it sparks awe, and it refuses to fade from public interest. Lately, the conversation has taken a surprising turn. Voices you wouldn't expect, Joe Rogan, Mel Gibson, are talking about it. And not dismissively, not with sarcasm, with wonder. Roumie mentioned their exchange. It wasn't casual. It was quiet, almost reverent. Because when you're talking about a linen cloth that might have once held Jesus of Nazareth, it stops being a debate. It becomes personal. Rogan made a simple, powerful point. The man on the shroud? A 6-foot-tall Hebrew male, scourged, crucified, first-century features. Even the hair matches the styles of that time. Science, too, is beginning to shift. The fabrics weave, first century, pollen trapped in the fibers, from ancient Jerusalem. And some claim to see the imprint of tiny Roman coins, Tiberius denarii, just above the eyes. For years, critics labeled the shroud a medieval hoax. But now researchers are using nuclear imaging, and what they're finding is astonishing. The cloth dates back nearly 2,000 years, and the image? Still a mystery. It isn't paint, it's not dye, it's not even like anything we've seen before. Some say it looks like the result of a sudden flash of energy. So intense, it burned a photographic negative into the fabric. Mel Gibson called it an atomic flare. A spiritual explosion at the moment death gave way to life. And that brings us back to the most haunting question of all. Who is this man in the shroud? Tall, Jewish, pierced, scourged, crowned with thorns. Everything the Gospels recorded is right there, etched into linen. There's something strange woven into the fabric of the shroud. Not just an image, but traces of place. Scientists found pollen embedded in the linen. And not just any pollen. It's unique to the Jerusalem region. The same soil, the same air, the same world where Jesus once walked. And the weave? It matches the patterns used in first-century Jewish burial cloths. But perhaps the most mysterious detail. It's found over the eyes, faint, almost invisible. Some researchers believe they've identified the outline of Roman coins. From the exact time Christ was crucified, pressed onto the cloth like a final act of care or mourning. For decades, tests gave conflicting results. Why? Because the samples came from patches, stitched on during medieval repairs after fire damage. Not the original cloth, not the heart of the mystery, but modern testing is starting to clear the fog. And what's left isn't just old fabric. It's a fusion of science, history, and something we still can't explain. Joe Rogan, known for his skepticism, admitted, "It's crazy. It's not a painting. It's something else." Even Mel Gibson chimed in, saying, "People get defensive right away. They don't just look at it, they try to disprove it. But what if the more we try to explain it, the more we're being called to simply see?" "Look," Gibson said, "here's the man. And then there's the legend." Some say that in earlier centuries, people who touched the shroud would collapse, like a current was running through it. as if power itself had soaked into the fibers. Is that part true? No one can say for certain, but the mystery only deepens. Jonathan Roumie speaks about it with quiet reverence. For him, the shroud isn't just a topic of study, it's a doorway. He prays with it when words fail. When he needs something more than a thought, he calls it a way to connect. And he's not alone. In the 1800s, there was an entire movement centered on the Holy Face, a devotion inspired by the shroud's image. Saint Therese of Lisieux even made it part of her Carmelite name. It wasn't about theology, it was about relationship, a way to be near him, to look into his face and feel seen. For Roumie, that's everything. He believes the shroud is something sacred, maybe even divinely preserved, and that makes all the difference. The first time the Shroud of Turin was officially recorded, France, 1389, held by the House of Savoy in the city of Chambéry. Later, it was moved to Turin, Italy in 1578, where it remains today, locked in a cathedral, seen only on rare occasions. But for millions, it isn't just a relic behind glass. It's the closest we've ever come to seeing the crucified Christ with our own eyes. Ever since it first appeared in recorded history, the Shroud of Turin has stirred more questions than answers. Scientists have tested it, historians have challenged it, believers have defended it, but no one has ever fully explained it. Because truthfully, there's nothing else quite like it. For millions, it's not just an ancient relic. It's something holy, a thread that connects this world to the divine. And out of that cloth came something deeper. A movement called the Holy Face devotion. It began in the 1800s. People would spend time simply gazing at the sorrowful expression on the shroud, not out of curiosity, but to find peace. In his pain, strength, in his stillness. That practice still exists. And for some, it's become a lifeline. Now here's something that feels straight out of a film. A few years ago, a documentary team used 3D data from the shroud to reconstruct the man's face. Not a sketch, not an artist's guess, but a digital model built from the actual image. Imagine looking into the face of the man behind the mystery. But this isn't the only time his image is said to have appeared. You've heard of Veronica, the woman who wiped Jesus' face as he carried the cross. But here's the twist. Veronica wasn't originally a name. It comes from two Greek words, vera and icon, meaning the true image. And in some way, that's what Jonathan Roumie has been seeking all along. Not fame, not applause, but something real. The true icon of Christ. And maybe, just maybe, he's helping us see it too. So what about you? Do you believe the Shroud of Turin is more than fabric and history? Do you believe it's something sacred, something that's changed lives? We want to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments. And if this moved you in any way, don't keep it to yourself. Let someone else see what you just saw. Maybe this time, they'll see his face too.